video, and this whole thing started like half a year ago when I was just messing about in one of the photography rooms in my school where I did my A-levels, and we took this really sweet photo of two of my friends, Maddie and Jenny, and they looked really sweet sat on this little chair, and that like really inspired me for quite a while, and I like couldn't place on why, but I knew I wanted to paint it, but I knew I wouldn't have any time because of my A-levels. So we're finally here about 6 months later, and I'm finally painting it. The reason why I wanted to take that photo was because of this yellow couch that I thought was so beautiful that I just wanted in my house, that they used as like a prop in the photography room. And it really reminded me of an artist that I've been liking at the minute called Brogan Bertie, who's just won the Portrait Artist of the Year award. And I thought like it would inspire me to maybe paint in his style. So I went into this project with a bit of a vision board. Like I'll take you through my steps. So the first step was the reference photo that we already took. The second step was to make a reference board. So I made one here for a new study, and you can see that my references are definitely Brogan Bertie and his painting style. What I was really inspired by in his style is how loose it is, because that's always something I'm trying to be more when I'm painting, is I'm trying to be more loose, because I was taught to paint in a very like rigid photo realistic way, so I'm like trying to unlearn that as I go. And then for some colour reference, we've got a Joan Mitchell, which this is like one of my favourite paintings ever. The colours together like make me so happy, and it's so expressive and in a way that I really want to try to be. I'd recently been to the Louvre in Paris, and I saw loads of Frans Hals paintings, and I just love how he, like in his portraits of men or in his portraits of lower class women, like he allowed himself to be more expressive. This painting of a flute player is just like one of my favourites ever. Like I just can't put it into words, like it's so alive. And this one as well. Yeah, that's Frans Hals as well. This, like, the texture is so, it makes me so happy. I love it. Then this is a Pinterest artist that I'm not familiar with, but I just saw it and I was like, I like this, because what I wanted to try and do with this painting is play with layers more and with underpainting, because I always paint in one layer, so I thought it might be fun to experiment with maybe not doing that, or maybe playing up underpainting more or layering more with diluted paint and white spirit, because I really like some of this, like, can you see in his rib cage there? Like, I love that, because it's like, again, it hints to it being a painting instead of just a photorealistic copy. So that was my inspiration going into it, and I just wanted to do it as a study at first. Like I had no conceptual ideas brewing. Like I just hadn't painted in a while since I'd done my commission, and I just really fancied it, so I thought I'd just do a study to get me back into the swing of things. So I'd already done one little composition sketch to sort of try and figure out what I was doing and how I wanted to crop the image to make it most like visually dynamic. And then I did a second study to try and figure out what I was doing with the paint, because I was trying to be more experimental with paint. I didn't want to go straight onto the real thing, just to make sure I was like happy with everything I was doing. So yeah, here I've sketched out the painting, and I've gone over and done a wash of this really bright yellow in the background, and I really like this, and it managed to like basically sway like the entire painting even to the end. And then I did a wash of colours over that to try and get the general colour palette of what it was going to look like. And I did this in oil paint, thinned down with white spirit. And then once I finished that little study, I started prepping the actual canvas. So here I'm like stretching out the canvas by putting in the little like wedges that they give you when you buy a canvas. You just shove them in the corner with a hammer, sorts it out. It makes the canvas more tight. And then my other little trick to make the canvas more tight is to apply water on the back, which once it dries like makes the canvas a lot tighter. And you can tell that it's tighter when you tap it, like it should sound like a drum. So I was very happy with that, give you a little thumbs up. And then I started drawing out, yeah. You can't really see what I'm doing here, but I was starting to draw out the whole thing. And this is something else I was experimental with as well. I didn't use the grid method for the entire thing, which is what I usually do. So yeah, in the first sketch, I did it completely by hand, just like being very expressive and loose with my arm movements. Like I was using my entire arm instead of my wrist, which hopefully paid out, made it a bit less rigid. But then here you can see I struggled a lot with accuracy in the faces. I had to go over and redo them about 3 times. So that I did use the grid method for. And then I did my yellow wash again underneath. And now we're finally starting to paint. And you can see I've got my little reference up in the corner, and it's raining again. It always rains when I paint, which is good because it makes me feel better for not going outside. So yeah, here I'm just starting with the underpainting. This stage of underpainting I think shaped the entire painting. Like having this layer that I first started with, which was really loose, really expressive, led me to be less tight in the final outcome, where I'd normally, like my first brushstrokes on that canvas would be visible in the final thing. I knew in this one, I could always cover it up because I was working with the fat over lean method of oil painting, where if you thin out oil paint, you can layer over the top of it with normal oil paint. And then if you want to use an oil medium over the top of that, but it has to be in that order. Otherwise it's like not archival. I don't know. You can also see in this point I've dyed my hair pink, so that didn't last very long, did it? This was about like a month ago, to be honest. It takes me a while to paint, like I'm quite a slow painter. I think maybe it's because I'm like not in the groove of it like I was in A-levels. One thing I was a bit worried about at this stage is how the background of the painting was very just like black, and I didn't know what I was going to do about that in the final painting. Now we get down to business. We're starting with the faces first, which is something I do that's probably not a good idea, but I just start with it because it's my favourite part and it will like get me into the swing of things. And if I do my favourite part first and I'm like really happy with it, then it like encourages me to carry on painting. So yeah, I started doing Maddie's face, and this was really, really fun for me because the lighting in this, because it was in like a photography studio, was so like the contrast was amazing, and that's not something I've had a lot before in my other paintings, apart from maybe like my one of me lying down. So it's being lit from the side and the background is black, like really dark black, so it's just, yeah, really nice. And at this point I started thinking about concept a little bit, which wasn't my intention to start with. I was just going into it like a normal study, but at this point I'd started reading On Photography by Susan Sontag. She talks about photography as an ethics of seeing, how it limits experiences to a search for the photogenic. And I feel like I can relate to this a lot, especially I feel like when my generation has become very naturalised to, you know, viewing our experiences through, can I post this on Instagram? And that was really inspiring me to think about how this photograph was taken and how inauthentic it actually was. And when I was in the process of thinking about composition, there was like lighting in the background, like a little lighting box, and I was thinking about maybe taking it out, but then I realised actually the entire staging of this painting is really weird. Like, it's not a natural setting, like this is not a pose that these two would naturally be having. There's just randomly a plant on like a little stool. It's really weird. And there's like a massive black curtain behind them, which is very studio-like. It sort of almost is reminiscent of like a stage, making you think that it kind of looks falsified or like forced, which obviously it's not. Like, I'm not trying to create a narrative that like my friends actually hate each other, because this moment was actually really sweet. I think the painting can have dual meanings in that it's still just a really lovely study of my friends, and also it's still cohesive with my ideas around performance and how we present ourselves and how that can feel staged. Like, juxtaposed with the intimacy of the two figures, is it just something that we have to accept that, like, especially in my generation, like, even moments of like real intimacy and real love for like your friends are still plagued by like your own need to perform and like be perceived in a certain way. I think is just really, really interesting and brings like dimensions to the painting. And I think this painting is a really nice departure from some things that I do. As in, like, it's not a self-portrait and it's in a style that I'm kind of experimenting with, but it still has a lot of my signature things that make me excited about painting, which is like portraiture and figurative representational work and concepts around like representation. So I'd started off the portraits in very thick oil paint and I'd left areas completely yellow. So throughout this entire painting I was sort of experimenting with different styles of layering paint, how I normally would, quite thickly, and then like just doing washes of colour and like building them up gradually, or like even leaving some parts for the underpainting to show through. And I think like the final outcome I'm really happy with, because it just feels like I've been a bit more playful with it. Like, I've just been trying out things, and I think you can tell that in the final piece. And I wasn't very happy with how the background looked at some points. I think it was a bit too light for my liking. I had to go over it like multiple times with a wash of black oil paint and white spirit, just to like get it to a point which I liked. I think one regret I might have in this painting is just using black straight out of the tube. I think I could have definitely given it a bit more variation, because it's quite flat in the final thing, but that's okay. And then I think that's the final piece. It was really hard with this piece, like when to know when I was finished, because I was trying to be less finite and be a bit more experimental. So like, for instance, there was this corner with the plant where I was thinking about just leaving yellow with the underpainting, but it needed the white to make the lighting of the painting make sense, to make like the white light coming onto the faces make sense. So I did add that in the end. But the yellow still shines through really beautifully in the figure a lot and in the plant. And the chair, like, I'm really happy with the chair because you can really see how I've layered up layers of underpainting. It makes it much more vibrant than I'm used to when I just paint like one layer, which I think is like a trick that like the old masters used to do to make things like glow more. And I'm really happy with it, yeah. I think it was a really lovely study and it was something that I really enjoyed, and it just gave me a bit of me time in a summer where I was going out quite a lot. If I were to do it again, I would not use black paint straight out the tube, and I would probably not start with the portrait because I started doing the portrait in my usual style of like just applying thick oil paint, and then the rest of it is like these thin washes. So I think I would maybe try and carry that through into the portrait. But I think some of its mistakes are what make it nice, because it's an experimental piece, like it's me trying new things. I think that is all from me, and hopefully I will see you again soon. I literally don't know when the next time I'm going to paint is because I'm going off to uni very soon. So thanks again for watching, love you guys.